Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into a truly chilling aviation mystery from 1937. We're going to look at a story of massive ambition, a desperate race against time, and a gigantic aircraft that was just swallowed whole by the unforgiving, pitch-black Arctic. You know, this isn't just some aviation milestone gone wrong. It's an absolutely eerie, unsolved puzzle that's literally haunted historians and scientists for over 3/4 of a century.
We are flying to our deaths. I mean, just imagine hearing that. That terrifying, half-joking premonition was actually spoken by the crew's very own radio operator right before takeoff. It immediately sets this incredibly dark tone for what was supposed to be a triumphant, historic journey. The men boarding that aircraft were jittery, and honestly, as we unpack the events leading up to this moment, you're going to completely understand why that creeping dread was just hanging over them.
Section 1. A doomed departure. The rush to the North Pole. So picture this. Captain Sigizmund Levanevsky, who is widely known as the Russian Lindbergh, and his hand-picked six-man crew were attempting to fly a massive N-209 bomber all the way from Moscow to Fairbanks, Alaska, and they were going straight over the North Pole. But the thing is, before they even left the ground, they were pretty much doomed by sheer ambition. The aircraft's designers explicitly warned that the N-209 needed a full year of preparation for a journey like this. It was totally untested, but to curry favor with Joseph Stalin, the Soviet official in charge slashed that timeline down to just 3 months. This extreme rush meant the crew never got to test the plane's long-distance capabilities. They were pushed into a 30-hour nightmare with zero blind flight training. So on August 12, 1937, they took to the skies, just profoundly underprepared.
The massive machine lifted off fast, in literally just 35 seconds. But almost immediately, the far-right engine started coughing out this thick trail of dark smoke. It was an ominous, creeping dread right from the jump. Ground engineers on the tarmac confidently brushed it off, predicting the smoke would just stop on its own. But as the N-29 disappeared into the northern sky with this deafening roar, well, that smoking engine was essentially a ticking time bomb.
Part 2. Into the Icy Abyss, the 19th hour.
Okay, so once you cross the North Pole, you enter this terrifyingly barren world where nature is entirely in control. By Friday morning, roughly 19 hours into their journey and 450 miles past the pole on the American side, they hit a solid wall of brutal weather. I want you to imagine sitting in that freezing, violently vibrating cabin. Outside your window, it's just a sensory nightmare. Blinding whiteout blizzards, 60-mile-per-hour gales, and the heavy, sickening thud of ice rapidly forming on the wings, literally dragging the heavy bomber down. Levanevsky desperately climbed to 20,000 feet, plunging the crew into these heavy, dark, overcast skies just to try and avoid the brutal headwinds.
And then, the inevitable happened. Sent at 17:58 Moscow time, this was the message. The far-right engine has quit due to a problem with the oil system. Will attempt a landing. That smoking engine from takeoff had finally failed them. This transmission marks the exact, chilling moment the crew knew they were going down into that frozen wasteland.
After that message, just dead air, nothing. You really have to ask yourself, how does a massive 4-engine bomber carrying 6 men just simply vanish into thin air? The silence that followed was absolute, and frankly, terrifying.
Section 3. Eerie Clues and Echoes. Ghostly Signals in the Dark.
So as an international search scrambled top aviators from the US, Canada, and the Soviet Union to comb the polar wastes, this incredibly tragic irony emerged. Think about what the crew actually packed to survive. They had 45 days of food, hunting weapons, warm sleeping bags, a barrel of caviar, and even fine furs intended as luxury gifts for US officials. But incredibly, for a perilous Arctic flight, they left their emergency radio behind. If they survived that violent crash, they were completely stripped of their ability to call for help. They were reduced to desperately tapping out faint, ghostly signals on whatever equipment was left intact. And remarkably, amateur radio operators actually reported hearing those eerie signals in the terrifying days that followed.
Now, while searchers combed the skies above, a chilling eyewitness account emerged from the ground. Inuit hunters near Aluktuk Point in Alaska reported a truly extraordinary sight on a stormy, rainy evening. Looking through binoculars, they watched a large flying machine flying incredibly low over the turbulent water. They actually saw it hit the sea, violently pull up for just a brief second, and then crash permanently into the dark waves near the Jones Islands. When they paddled out the very next day to investigate, all they found was a massive, eerie oil slick floating on the surface.
Section 4. The Ghostly Searches. Decades of False Hope. Because of World War II, the search was shelved for years. But when it finally resumed, modern scientists and explorers faced a practically incomprehensible challenge. We are talking about 170,000 square miles of freezing wasteland to hunt through, all based on the crew's last known radio contact 300 miles past the North Pole. As Kevin Abnett from the Geophysical Institute perfectly described it, finding this plane isn't like finding a needle in a haystack. It's like finding a needle in 10,000 haystacks.
In the modern search efforts, they've just been a series of crushing disappointments. Back in 1999, a sonar scan picked up a really promising 60-foot cigar shape in Camden Bay, right near where those hunters saw the crash. The excitement was palpable. But the following year, when they drilled through 6 feet of solid sea ice to lower a submarine, they found absolutely nothing but murky water, crabs, and a pile of rocks. So did the sonar just misread a rock ridge? Or, and this is a terrifying thought, did they actually miss the plane in the murky darkness by just 200 feet?
Which brings us to our final section, an unsolved Arctic tomb, the frozen secret.
The Arctic fiercely protects its secrets. Even highly equipped scientific expeditions in 2011 and 2013 were chased right out of the water by violent winter storms before they could properly dive. But here's what we know for sure. Out there in the freezing, murky depths, 4 massive 900-kilogram metal engines and the remnants of the N209 still lie intact in the pitch black. They are a literal time capsule from 1937, just patiently waiting to be found.
So, what does this all mean? It leaves us staring right into the terrifying, icy unknown, with one final question. Will Sigizmund Levanevsky and his brave, doomed crew ever be brought home, or is this one mystery the Arctic intends to keep frozen forever? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gave you a vivid picture of aviation's most haunting disappearance.